Discover the incredible journey. My parents took me to court after my surprising house purchase. Jamie Thompson had thought she was finally stepping into the life she'd always dreamed of. After years of struggling through graduate school, working endless nights as a research assistant at the local university, she had managed to pull herself up from the depths of financial instability. The old family home, freshly repainted with a worn charm that whispered sweet nostalgia, was now hers. But that joy quickly morphed into a nightmare when her parents erupted into her newfound life, demanding the very place she believed would anchor her stability. How did it come to this? Standing in front of the ornate wooden doors of the courthouse, Jamie's heart ached at the thought of being thrust into a legal battle against her own parents. Raised on sacrifices and expectations, she had begun to mold her own identity as an adult, but now the past clawed at her heels not because of failure but betrayal. How could they accuse her of stealing their legacy? As her father's harsh words echoed in her mind, she heard every ounce of his resentment, a simmering pot of unmet expectations boiling over. He had often mentioned his dreams of passing down the property, a legacy meant for siblings who would make it a family haven. Her pulse quickened as she took her seat in the crowded courtroom, waiting for the moment when her world would tilt even further. The whole process felt surreal. She no longer wanted the house to be just bricks and beams. It was supposed to represent safety, familiarity, and a piece of her childhood. Now those images were shattered, splintered by the weight of expectation and the fear of losing something she held dear. It was more than just a home. It was family history. For Jamie, each gasp of air felt laced with anguish. How could she prove her worth without tearing apart the fabric of their family bonds? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension surged and tightened around Jamie's heart as she gripped the armrest. In the eyes of the judge, she saw a hint of understanding that shifted nothing in terms of her battle. It was at that moment she would ultimately learn that this wasn't just about the house. The deeper issues began to reveal themselves like cracks in an old foundation, her father's struggles with perceived failures against his inabilities, and her mother's quiet, unfulfilled ambitions buried under layers of family expectation. The unfolding revelation struck again, harder than before. This wasn't merely about her purchasing the home. It was a fight for autonomy against the tide of inherited alliances. When sudden accusations of artistic talent came spilling from her mother's lips, something Jamie had never known existed, she grasped at the potential meaning behind these words. Could the legacy truly be bound in creative expression rather than ownership of a property? As the courtroom candle flickered with anxiety, Jamie felt like she was walking a tightrope, balancing her dreams with the expectations that threatened to pull her down. As the air thickened and the clock ticked menacingly, Jamie was thrown into turmoil, faced with the realization that victory might cost her more than she could afford her family's unity. Would she risk it all to claim what she considered rightfully hers? With one last finality awaiting her next steps, the thought reverberated painfully. What would truly define her legacy? Would an emotional crescendo shatter her perception of belonging? The moment froze. It felt as if the walls of the courtroom were closing in, demanding answers she didn't yet have. The gavel slammed down, the sound sending a chill through Jamie's spine. The judge's voice boomed in the stillness, declaring the hearing in recess until the following week. Jamie exhaled a shaky breath, the weight of the moment still sinking in. She gathered her papers, her mind racing even faster than her heart. How could a simple house purchase unravel the fabric of her family? It was as if each confrontation, each accusation, had chipped away at her sense of self, a self that had only just begun to emerge from years of lingering doubt. When Jamie finally left the courthouse, the din of the world outside felt deafening. She needed space to think. As she walked through the downtown streets, their vibrant energy juxtaposed sharply with the turmoil brewing within her. The air was thick with the scent of coffee and pastries, a stark reminder of her earlier dreams of a simple life, one that now felt unattainable. And the subsequent days, the silence at home grew oppressive. Jamie found herself oscillating between anger and sorrow, each emotion pulling her in opposite directions. She started to write. The words spilled out onto the page, fueling her need to express what she could not voice out loud. She wrote letters to her parents she would never send, articulating her hopes and fears, her frustrations and dreams. Writing had always been a sanctuary for her, a way to make sense of the chaotic world around her. One evening, with a mug of tea cradled in her hands, she came across a collection of her old sketches, works of art she had let languish in the corners of her mind. Strokes of charcoal captured moments of pure imagination, each piece alive with emotion. As she brushed her fingers lightly across the paper, a latent desire surfaced. Was this her legacy, her inheritance? Could it be that the creativity she had hidden away was more significant than ownership of a house? The realization sent a spark through her. Jamie felt the stirrings of a plan forming, an idea that might allow her to reclaim her narrative without severing ties with her parents. What if she could turn her artistic talent into a medium of reconciliation? She envisioned an exhibit showcasing her work, a tribute to the family home that had once been a wellspring of shared memories. Rather than framing her involvement with the house as conflict, she would transform it into an exploration of identity. But this plan came with its own set of uncertainties. Would her parents, who had once dismissed her artistic aspirations, embrace this newfound voice of hers? Or would they see it as another betrayal, another indication of her desire to step away from the lineage they had envisioned? It struck her that their expectations stemmed from genuine roots, yet the branches they had built were suffocating as the days trickled closer to the next court date. Jamie threw herself into her projects, pouring every ounce of emotion into her art. Each brush stroke felt like a conversation with her past, a way to forge connections where friction had once ruled. Yet with each piece completed, she sensed the weight of her parents' expectations looming ever larger. The thought of facing them again, knowing she was stepping out of the shadows of their dreams, was both thrilling and terrifying. What if they could not understand? Standing before the canvas one night, the final strokes complete, she felt a paradoxical sense of empowerment and vulnerability wash over her. The artwork stood as a testament to her journey, a realization that she could be more than just their daughter caught in the crossfire of their aspirations. Yet, could she confront the deeper roots of their discontent and her own fears? With the coming court date pressing heavily on her mind, Jamie grappled with lingering questions about her future. The ties of family history accompanied her new identity, but could she forge an alliance through her art? The answer remained uncertain, but as she stood amid her creations, one thing was clear. She was ready to reclaim not just her home but her narrative. The time had come to face not only her parents, but also the reflection of herself that she had long kept hidden. Would this exhibit become a bridge or a barrier between them? Desperation swirled within her, seeking clarity as the reality of the courtroom loomed ahead. Would Jamie embrace this awakening, paving a path towards healing? Or would she succumb to the shadows of expectation? Jamie stood before her completed canvas, a burst of colors reflecting her internal storm. The artwork breathed life, each layer telling a story of resilience and conflict. At that moment, she realized that this wasn't just another painting, it was her declaration of independence, a poignant reflection of her situation. She had transformed her turmoil into something tangible, yet the weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on her heart. It was a late night when clarity washed over her, illuminating a way forward. The looming courtroom was not merely a place for judgment. It represented an opportunity for negotiation, a chance to reclaim her narrative on her own terms. She thought of her parents, their expectations like a heavy shadow, yet possibly flickering with a glimmering hope for reconciliation. Would they understand the voice she had found through her art? She needed to prepare herself not just for the hearing, but for the inevitable confrontation that awaited her. The coming days were filled with fervent activity. Jamie brainstormed ideas for the exhibit, meticulously planning how to weave her family history into the artwork. Each piece would be a visual dialogue, inviting her parents into her world, rather than alienating them. She considered titles that embodied transformation and healing, focusing on the core emotions that had shaped her identity, roots of resistance, and bridges of understanding. Each title was laden with the weight of potential acceptance or rejection. As the courthouse date approached, doubt flickered uneasily in her mind. What if her parents dismissed her efforts as trivial? What if they weren't emotional about art, but only focused on the numbers on paper? Her pulse quickened at the thought of their disapproval, yet slowly, these fears morphed into determination. She began to articulate her intentions out loud, even if only to herself in the mirror. "This is your truth," she reminded herself. "You deserve to be heard." On the day before the hearing, Jamie stepped into the small makeshift gallery within her apartment, surrounding herself with her creations. She allowed herself to feel every emotion swirling within a blend of excitement, fear, and unbridled hope. Her efforts would be put to the ultimate test. She would unveil not just her art, but the depth of her character and aspirations. The night stretched on, and restless thoughts ebbed and flowed like the tide. In her mind, she rehearsed an imagined conversation with her parents, picturing their reactions intermingled with various scenarios. Would they be resistant? Would they listen? Each possible response fueled her resolve to remain firm but open, to stand her ground while also allowing for discourse. Finally, the day arrived. The courthouse loomed, a stark reminder of the conflict yet to unfold. As she made her way through the bustling halls, a sense of power swelled within her, mingling with anxiety. She caught reflections of herself in different windows, a young woman caught in a tumultuous challenge, yet armed with something greater than fear. Her artistic voice, her truth. Upon stepping into the courtroom, Jamie steeled herself. The familiar faces of her parents flickered with fragile uncertainty, presenting an opportunity for dialogue. But as she settled into her seat, a wave of apprehension washed over her. It was apparent that this was more than just a legal matter, it was a crucible for her evolution. With the gavel's echo setting the tone, her heart raced. In that moment, Jamie understood it was not merely about ownership or legacy, but about courageously bridging the gap between her past and the future she desired. The time had come to unravel the fabric of discord. Thread by thread, with newfound resolve, Jamie prepared to speak not just to her parents, but to the very content of her soul. As she took a deep breath, she felt the weight of the moment hovering at the brink of revelation. Would she rise to the occasion and ignite a transformation, or would shadows of expectation continue to haunt her? The moment held its breath, teetering on the edge of understanding and estrangement, as the court session began. What would be the consequence of her courage? Jamie sat in the courtroom, the atmosphere thick with tension. Each face around her seemed to mirror her uncertainty. Her parents, seated a few rows away, looked composed yet fragile. Their expressions reflected a mix of emotions: curiosity, confusion, and something deeper, perhaps fear of the unknown. The judge's voice sliced through the silence, reminding her that this was not merely a personal confrontation. It was a pivotal moment that could redefine her relationship with her family. As the proceedings unfolded, Jamie felt her heart pound in rhythm with the gavel's authoritative echoes. She was keenly aware of her body, sweating slightly, throat dry, yet she knew she needed to gather herself. This was the moment she had prepared for, not just to defend herself legally but to assert her identity. The stakes were higher than mere ownership. She was fighting for validation. When her turn came, Jamie stood, legs slightly unsteady. She faced her parents, expecting their gazes to pierce through her newfound confidence. Yet, she saw something unexpected in their eyes, an inkling of curiosity, perhaps a fleeting moment of recognition. It fueled her voice as she began to speak. "Art has always been a deeply personal expression of who I am," she articulated, her voice firm. Buying that house was an act of creativity and an emblem of independence. It was less about the structure itself and more about what it represents: my journey and the path toward my own truth. Each word carried significance, laden with emotion she had previously bottled up. To her surprise, her father leaned forward, as if drawn by her conviction. Her mother, too, appeared to soften, her eyes glistening in the courtroom's harsh fluorescent lights. "I realize this is shocking," Jamie continued, "but it opens a dialogue. What does the house mean to you? What does it mean to me? It's a shared history, and art allows us to explore that history together." The boldness of her framing shocked her, but she pressed on. The room felt alive with possibility as an internal metamorphosis began to unfold within her. She was no longer just a daughter but an artist demanding recognition not only for her work, but for her identity. Then came the critical moment of silence as she glanced at her parents, their faces searching for understanding. Jamie prepared for resistance, but instead she opened herself up to the risk of vulnerability. "I am asking for your support, not just today but moving forward. My art means my voice and I want you to hear it. There is a bridge to be built between us. Suddenly, the sounds around her faded, absorbing her entirely into the moment she had constructed. Was she truly ready to bare her soul in front of them? The myriad possibilities danced in her mind, intricate as the paint strokes on her canvases, yet one burned brighter than the rest, the chance to reconcile. It was a turning point, and she felt the weight of her truth settle comfortably against her heart. With a deep breath, Jamie faced the judge, knowing the next words she would utter could either ignite understanding or deepen the rift. Your Honor, I ask for the opportunity to transform this process from conflict into connection, not just on legal terms, but as a journey toward healing for my family and for myself. As the judge contemplated her statement, Jamie sensed a shift in the atmosphere, the tension giving way to something softer, a tremor of hope. She had spoken, and now it was time for her parents to respond. Would they grasp the chance to walk with her, to bridge the gap she had so boldly opened? In that moment, Jamie learned that courage was not just in standing firm but also in waiting for the answers that could redefine her. The courtroom felt electric, a space of possibility, as she sat poised between her past and an uncertain future. What awaited her next would either unfold in division or create a tapestry of newfound understanding. The question lingered in the air: how would her parents respond to the vulnerability she had exposed? Would they take a step closer or retreat into the shadows of their expectations? Jamie felt the intensity of the moment reverberate within her, a palpable tension that thickened the air like a fog. Her heart raced, but beneath that jagged pulse lay a deep-seated resolve, a transformation she could no longer deny. She had stepped out of the shadow of expectation, wrapping her arms around her identity with a fierce urgency. No longer just a passive player in her own life, she was ready to command her narrative. As the judge's deliberation lingered, Jamie's mind wandered back to the house, the layers of paint she had painstakingly applied, the vibrancy of each room in stark contrast to the monochrome of her past. That house wasn't just a structure. It was a testament to her desire for growth and change. It was a canvas upon which she could paint her aspirations and fears alike. The gravity of that realization served as a revealer. Feeling the eyes of the courtroom on her, Jamie meticulously collected her thoughts for the imminent dialogue. She anticipated her parents' reactions: the quirked brows, the stiffened posture, the murmured concerns. Yet, amid that anticipation, Jamie was armed with her own qualities, her artistic articulation, the emotional intelligence she had nurtured over countless solitary nights in her studio. She realized now that they might meet her not with judgment but with curiosity. "Mom, Dad," she said, her voice steady despite the emotional storm within. "What I've learned is that this moment is bigger than any misunderstanding between us. It's about finding common ground in each other as truth." She locked eyes with each of them, seeking their engagement, hoping to create a dialogue rather than a battlefield. Her mother blinked slowly, a mixture of surprise and a flicker of recognition crossing her face. It was a moment, however brief, that felt like a crack in the shell of her parents' preconceived notions. Jamie's heart leaped. Perhaps this was her opening. We've always communicated through art, even if we didn't realize it, Jamie continued. The stories I tell with my paintbrush reflect the struggles and joys of our family. I want you to see that aspect of me, to step into this world I've created and understand how it weaves into our shared history. Waiting for their responses scrapped at Jamie's nerves, but she held her ground. In that moment, she understood she had something to offer: a deeper connectivity that transcended mere obedience to family roles. They were more than just parents. They were companions on this journey toward understanding. Finally, as the silence stretched into an eternity, her father spoke, his voice uncharacteristically soft yet edged with an authority that begged attention. "We didn't know how to navigate this, Jamie," he confessed, a tremor in his tone. "We only wanted what was best for you." Her mother nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "We're trying to grasp the unfamiliar terrain of your choices, but we never wanted to stifle your voice." In that exchange, Jamie felt the transformation complete. Their vulnerability was a bond that began to stitch together their fraying relationship. A deep breath filled her lungs as she realized that moments of fragility could serve as stepping stones toward growth. She had initiated a shift, ignited a dialogue that might provide the healing they all desperately needed. But even amidst these burgeoning connections, A gnawing doubt lingered at the edges of her consciousness. Was this newfound understanding just the surface? Could their acknowledgement translate into unwavering support? The gavel's echo cut through the atmosphere once more, pulling her back into the present, a gentle reminder that the journey was far from over. Your Honor, she addressed the judge directly this time, the stakes now clear. Can we initiate a process to explore these connections? A chance to redefine our paths together? The question hung heavily in the air, and Jamie's stomach churned with anticipation. Would the judge, too, recognize the transformative power in cultivating understanding over conflict? The possibilities began to swirl in her mind as she contemplated the next steps. She had embraced her identity, sought acknowledgement and connection, but now the journey demanded more. What strategies would she have to employ to ensure their walk toward reconciliation maintained momentum? As Jamie prepared for the response, she felt the awareness bloom within her. The real work was just beginning, and every brushstroke of her life would require careful deliberation. The moment of truth was upon her, casting doubt on whether their past wounds could heal, and urging her to confront the complexities yet to unfold. Would they dare to journey together into the uncertain? Or would the rifts reemerge, stronger than before? Jamie's breath hitched as the gavel struck again, the sharp sound slicing through the tension that clung to her like a second skin. The judge considered her request, the weight of his gaze penetrating deeply into her soul, and for a heartbeat time stretched painfully. She felt the pulse of possibility lapping at her consciousness, an opportunity to transform not just her relationship with her parents, but also herself. Miss Parker, the judge finally spoke, each word deliberate. Your proposition intrigues me. Family therapy can be beneficial, especially when navigating these intricate dynamics. Relief washed over Jamie, but it was tinged with an even stronger sense of responsibility. Thank you, Your Honor, she managed, but beneath her composed exterior, anxiety flickered anew. Initiating therapy was merely the first step. The actual process would require vulnerability and courage she had yet to summon fully. As they exited the courthouse, her parents fell into unexpected silence. The air crackled with unspoken words, each lost moment heavy with potential. Jamie glanced at her mother, the familiar struggle of spirited codes of silence brewing in the space between them. Do you believe we can really make progress? Her mother's brow furrowed, confusion battling resilience within her. I want to, but it's hard to change. They climbed into the car, the intimacy of the vehicle adding an intense layer of scrutiny to their conversation. Jamie's mind raced ahead, crafting strategies, envisioning sessions where she could peel away layers of fears and miscommunication. Mom, Dad, she began, discomfort bubbling within her. Let us also share what we need from each other during therapy. Can't just be about understanding my choices. She sensed apprehension in her parents, recognition that their own vulnerabilities needed to be laid bare. There was no way around this. Your needs matter too, she reassured them. What are your biggest concerns? How do we build a foundation that includes all of us? Her father's eyebrows knitted together. We fear we'll lose you. You've always felt different, and we didn't know how to support you. I've learned that difference isn't something to fear. Jamie's voice wavered slightly, but she pressed on. It can be a bridge instead of a barrier between us. Her parents exchanged glances, the germination of understanding glowing faintly between them. Yet, Jamie was all too aware that this was merely the beginning of a long process. Each revelation would require them to navigate the treacherous waters of hurt and disappointment. They arrived home and Jamie felt the weight of her sanctuary, a vivid realm where each brushstroke whispered secrets. Let us start our conversations here, she suggested bravely. We can create a safe space in my studio. As they entered, the vibrant colors of her artwork enveloped them, a tropical fusion that contrasted sharply with the stark emotions they carried. Taking a deep breath, Jamie realized she now had the tools to showcase her vulnerability through her art as well. I can demonstrate my process, how my art mirrors my feelings, my fears show you what you mean to me. Her parents exchanged earnest looks, uncertainty fading slightly. Perhaps this was a language they shared, a visual pathway to unlocking their unspoken needs. But as they began to settle into the newly familiar ground, doubt gnawed at Jamie. The question echoed in her mind relentlessly: were her efforts truly enough to bridge the divide? Could her artistry serve as a solid foundation for the healing they desperately required? Then, the heaviness of their past hung precariously above their heads, an ominous storm threatening to unleash a torrent of unresolved issues. Jamie knew that to face the future they must confront their history first. What hidden conversations lay in wait just beneath the surface, threatening to disrupt their fragile progress? Was the path toward reconciliation as straightforward as her heart yearned for it to be, or would the truth become a tempest too overwhelming to behold? Jamie stood quietly in her studio, the tang of paint mingling with the anxious energy pulsating through her. With her parents seated on the worn couch, she felt the weight of their expectations pressing down like an oppressive blanket. They were standing at the precipice of something transformative, yet the depths of their shared history loomed ominously over them. Painting became a ritual, a bridge between their individual experiences. She picked up a brush, its soft bristles poised above a blank canvas. This was her realm, a space where emotions could spill freely and make themselves known. Let us express what we're feeling. I'll start, she declared, her voice gaining strength. As she dipped her brush in vivid hues, each stroke seemed to pull the anxieties from her chest and onto the canvas. Mom, Dad, I need you to be reactionary. We've held secrets too long, Jamie urged, encouraged by the creative flow enveloping her. Let us create a visual dialogue. Her mother's eyes flickered with uncertainty, but Jamie insisted, this is a safe place. No judgment here. With a hesitant nod, her mother took a brush. The first strokes were tentative, as if each brushstroke might break some unspoken code. But with every flicker and color added, Jamie felt the tension shift. Her father joined in, his approach gruff yet earnest. I don't know what colors to use to express my fears, he admitted, a nervous laugh accompanying his awkward attempts at creating. Use whatever spills out. With each revelation, Jamie watched their transformation, layer upon layer, not just on the canvas but within their hearts. Colors collided and intertwined, deep blues of sorrow, vibrant reds of anger, muted yellows representing hope. Their emotions began translating into something palpable. See how they interact. It's chaotic, but there's beauty in this mess, she observed, feeling a swell of pride. She was navigating the dynamics she had longed for yet feared, turning unprocessed tension into a visual exploration of their familial bond. As they painted, Jamie felt a shift within herself too. It was more than fostering understanding. It was asserting her identity. Each brushstroke bolstered her confidence, revealing the strength of vulnerability, a skill she hadn't fully recognized until now. In her art, she saw not just her fears but also potential for growth. Yet as they shared this transformative experience, Jamie could feel the remnants of tension looming just beneath the surface, festering unresolved grievances waiting to emerge unbridled. Once the paint dried, would the color still speak for them? Mom, how did it feel to paint that? She asked, breaking the concentrated silence, her eyes scanning her mother's creation. Relieving. But it still feels like the past is following me. Her mother's voice trembled. Because it hasn't been addressed, Jamie replied softly, her heart racing. We need to face the truths we are afraid to confront. The weight of those words hung heavily in the air, and in their intensity, something shifted. A moment of connection blossomed, ripe with a nascent understanding, but also a harrowing uncertainty about where this journey might lead them. As shadows from the past encroached, Jamie felt an invitation to delve deeper into their unresolved narratives. What stories had they buried that shaped their fears? Was she prepared for the intensity of those truths, knowing they would put every ounce of newfound connection to the test? The thought sent a chill through her, igniting both trepidation and resolve in equal measure. They had begun a conversation marked by creativity, but now it was time to weave in the unspoken shadows that hovered just beyond their fingertips. What would be unearthed in the depths of their collective experience? And would it fortify their bonds or unravel everything they had worked to mend? The path before them twisted ominously, yet Jamie felt it was time to step forward. As the paintbrushes danced across the canvas, Jamie's heart raced in anticipation. The vibrant colors she and her parents had splattered onto the canvas became a temporary escape, but the deeper issues lingered, casting a shadow over their newfound progress. She scrutinized the swirling colors, each hue representing an emotion: fear, regret, yearning. The artistic expression had provided a glimpse of connection, yet now diving deeper felt like standing at the edge of a chasm, with no clear idea of what awaited below. Her mind shifted to the breathing silence that enveloped them. Each stillness gnawed at her courage, pulling her back from the brink of confrontation. "Mom, can we talk about the things we've avoided?" Jamie ventured, the weight of her resolve countered by a twinge of uncertainty. Her mother's brush hesitated mid-stroke, a ripple of fear clouding her eyes. Jamie understood the delicacy needed here. They were no longer merely creating art, but seeking a fragile truth that might be hidden beneath their masks. "What do you mean, honey?" her mother asked, voice barely above a whisper, as if every word uttered might break something precious. "I mean the past. Fear, anger, the things we never talk about." Jamie's voice grew steadier as she spoke, bolstered by the power of their visual language. "How will we move forward if we keep pushing down our emotions?" Her father cleared his throat, his expression troubled yet contemplative. "I see what you're saying, Jamie, but it's complicated. Some memories aren't just painful, they're laced with guilt. Regrets we didn't even realize we carried." Jamie nodded, the ache of understanding reverberating in her core. It was the unspoken, those lingering shadows that fueled their family's distance. Would exploring those narratives only deepen the wounds, or could it initiate their healing? The answer eluded her, but she felt it was time to unearth some truths. "What if we painted our fears?" she proposed, half expecting resistance but also sensing the growing tension in the room could be transformed if they approached it from an artistic angle. "Let us put it all out there, our regrets, our anger. It might hurt, but it could also be liberating." Her parents exchanged a glance, an unarticulated dialogue tracing through the air. Finally, her mother sighed, almost reluctantly. "All right, I'll try. But can we begin with something manageable?" "Of course," Jamie reassured, her heart leaping. They cautiously returned to their brushes, the urgency of expression weaving a complex tapestry of emotions. Painting with no restraint, Jamie threw herself into muddied greens, murky browns, and harsh contrast colors that screamed of inner chaos. She began to feel the wooziness of unfamiliar thoughts spinning in her brain, swirling images and stories begging for a voice. "Whenever I had to take control, it was overwhelming," she confessed softly, her brush cutting through a dense smear of paint. "I neglected my own feelings about everything that has happened." With each pronounced stroke, Jamie felt her conviction strengthening. Blood pulsed through her veins as she turned her gaze toward her parents. "Mom, Dad, what is holding you back? What are you afraid of expressing?" As her father dipped into the deep maroon, his brow furrowed, a torrent of conflicting emotions was unleashed. "Fear of failure, I guess. I thought if I carried the burdens alone, I could spare you from the weight." That admission hung thick in the air, prompting Jamie to reflect on her own life. Had she been so focused on their expectations that she allowed a barrier to erect between them? Perhaps it was time for her to peel back her own layers, to reflect on what she hid beneath her own surface of colors. "I want you both to know," she interjected with a fierceness that surprised even her. "You're not carrying everything alone anymore. We're a team whether we like it or not." As they painted, Jamie felt a profound shift, her desires to be both understood and seen melded with the desire for connection. Yet, as the colors melded on the canvas, she wondered if the revelations would inevitably push them back into the very darkness they sought to escape. "Let us keep going," she urged, pushing the paint across the canvas even as doubt crept under her skin. Would vulnerability with her own parents whet the appetite of their resurfacing grievances? As patterns formed and stories streamed, Jamie felt emboldened yet terrified. Clarity was a beckoning light, yet shadows loomed larger with every stroke, the atmosphere brimming with precarious energy, a palpable tension begging to either unite or shatter them irreparably. "Ready or not, here they come," she whispered to herself, as she unleashed yet another wave of color, unsure of where their journey would ultimately lead. The true test awaited them with every brush against canvas. The battle between healing and heartbreak was just beginning. What would surface in their pursuit of authenticity? As Jamie plunged into this fearless exploration, she sensed the tumult brewing, a storm of buried emotion threatening to erupt with a catastrophic force. As the last strokes dried on the canvas, a heavy silence settled around Jamie and her parents. The room, once vibrant with the promise of expression, now felt constricted by unsaid words and unresolved tensions, as if the air had thickened with the paint they had just laid down. Jamie glanced at her parents, both transfixed by the explosion of color on the canvas that mirrored their internal chaos. "Is this really what we want?" She wrestled with the notion, feeling the volatile mix of anticipation and dread. This was the moment they had all long avoided, yet here it was laid bare before them. I think we need to discuss what we've painted. Her mother finally broke the silence, voice quavering. Jamie's heart raced again, a reminder of the initial anxiety that had ignited her desire to dig deeper. Was her mother ready to navigate this emotional terrain? Or was she simply putting on a facade? Matching the mess is a start, isn't it? Her father added, attempting to inject a sense of lightness into a heavy moment. But Jamie could feel the weight of his words pressing down. The risks they all confronted grew clearer. Each color they had unleashed not only represented fears, but also the uncharted territories of their lives that had been long untouched. You both painted your struggles, Jamie replied cautiously. But what about me? How do I fit into this chaos? She positioned herself as a bridge between their struggles, unwilling to let her own slice of turmoil continue to go unaddressed. The sense of belonging within their dialogue felt crucial. Yet was it risky? With a hesitant brush, Jamie added a bold splash of cerulean blue, signifying her yearning for clarity. Reflecting on the paint splatters, she couldn't help but think the vibrant color also captured her desire to take control, to carve out her own identity in the midst of their emotional upheaval. I realize I've hidden my worries too, she confessed. About being good enough, about pleasing both of you while juggling everything in my life. It's exhausting. Her father looked up, surprise flickering in his expressions like the light bouncing off the colors. We never wanted you to feel that way, he said softly, the vulnerability contrasting sharply with the turbulence they all had felt. I know, she responded gently, firming her resolve. But I do. And I need to embrace that feeling instead of burying it. Each admission felt like peeling away layers of centuries-old mud, revealing raw, unfiltered emotions. They were reclaiming their truths. With newfound determination, Jamie proposed a shift. Let us promise to paint our triumphs, not just our fears. What have we overcome together? What victories can we celebrate, even if they're small? Resistance simmered for a moment. All three had navigated through the rubble of disappointment and doubt. But it was a glimmer of hope that flicked at Jamie's heart. Perhaps they could introduce a balance between their burdens and successes. Slowly, her parents took up their brushes once more. Revitalized by her suggestion, Jamie amplified her strokes with deepened enthusiasm, each motion a melding of healing reflections and newfound insights. The colors began to brighten, lifting the heaviness that had pervaded the atmosphere only moments ago. Together they painted forward, narrating segments of their lives where they had triumphed against the odds. Yet, amidst the release, lurking doubt still haunted Jamie. Could illusions of unity bloom into real connection? What unfolded as each brush met canvas remained uncertain. The canvas told an incomplete story, and with every stroke, the air crackled with unvoiced emotions, a cacophony of fear and hope that both stretched and tethered them. As the session drew to a close, Jamie's heart swelled with an apprehensive elation. Lines began to blur between the art and their lives. The painted canvas became not just an expression but a reflection, an invitation for deeper dialogues. Can this really be the start? She pondered about their transformation. The door to authentic conversations now felt ajar. The question was whether they would dare to step through. What would be revealed when the allure of superficial comfort dissolved in the face of pressing honesty? It was an unsettling prospect, but Jamie resolved to champion this journey. The need to confront, explore, and evolve felt insatiable. But would her family be ready to follow her lead into the uncharted territory of their complexities? As Jamie contemplated the next phase of their emotional journey, she knew the moment of truth was spiraling closer. A confrontation promising either liberation or chaos. Jamie stood on the threshold of her past and future. The courtroom had transformed into a crucible, forging new relationships as she emerged from confrontation resolute in her identity. The settlement agreed upon with her parents had surprised her, but not as much as the agreement to undergo family therapy. Their acknowledgement of her passion for art marked a significant turning point. It illuminated the possibility of bridging their emotional gaps through vulnerability, the very essence she had captured in her artwork. Reflecting on her journey, Jamie accomplished something she once thought unattainable. She conquered the challenges of her upbringing, transforming fear into a powerful narrative that involved her parents while honoring her individuality. The process of creating not just canvases but a shared dialogue proved to be a fundamental aspect of her growth. Painting together fostered a mutual understanding that had long been overshadowed by unspoken barriers. As the weeks turned into months, their sessions became a refuge. Each therapy meeting led to vivid discussions revolving around their emotions, and Jamie learned to articulate her needs with an authenticity she had previously hesitated to express. Her parents listened, their own fears and regrets surfacing, creating a dialogue of transformation that was rich and engaging. In various sessions, they painted their emotional landscapes, each stroke revealing deep-seated wounds, but also bright spots of resilience. The art became a metaphor for their family bond, messy yet profoundly beautiful. More than therapy, the collaboration flourished into a project that demanded Jamie's artistic expression. She organized her first art exhibit titled Bridges of Understanding, showcasing the work they had created together during therapy. The opening night was electrifying, the gallery walls adorned with emotional landscapes that reflected not only family tension, but also the journey toward healing. Friends, colleagues, and most importantly, her parents stood as proud witnesses to her evolution. The night of the exhibit was a moment of triumph. Jamie stood before her creations, each piece a testament to her resilience, creativity, and newfound emotional vocabulary. Her father approached her, tears welling in his eyes. "I didn't see you, Jamie," he confessed, his voice cracking with sincerity. "I see you now and I am so proud." Her mother wrapped her arms around Jamie tightly, whispering, "You've opened our hearts. Thank you for being brave enough to show us who you are." That validation felt like a long-awaited embrace, wrapping around the insecurities she had carried for so long. Jamie realized she had transformed not just the perceptions of her parents but herself as well. No longer burdened by inherited expectations, she stood as an artist, confident, purposeful, and proud of her journey. With the exhibition receiving local recognition, Jamie's path widened into new horizons. Opportunities began to emerge: gallery invitations, writing engagements about her creative processes, and collaborations with other artists seeking to tell their stories. For the first time, she felt the weight of her identity settle comfortably. Jamie had not only reclaimed her narrative, but had sculpted it into a powerful tool for self-discovery and connection. In this newfound state of solid confidence, Jamie embraced the layers of complexity that defined her. She had conquered more than her legal battle. She had fostered healing within her family while establishing herself as a competent and recognized figure in the art community. The house, once a source of conflict, now stood as a beacon of shared experiences painted with understanding, resilience, and love. Leaving the gallery that night, Jamie felt something new, an exhilarating sense of balance, where self-acceptance harmonized with familial connection. The echoes of the past, once haunting, had transformed into a foundation for future dialogues and deeper bonds. Her heart swelled with pride, not from mere victory but from the authentic embodiment of her legacy. This was more than merely resolving conflicts. She had accomplished personal growth that resonated far beyond expectations. Jamie Thompson had not just found her voice, she had solidified her place as an artist and daughter, embracing all facets of who she was. This was her moment, and now the world was finally invited to witness it. Now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, every click helps. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative ending.